Who is Dr. Chuck?
First of all, I'm a really old guy. Everything from trauma, a lot of oncology.
30
like
years.
That. 35 altogether.
35.
Yeah,
wow.
yeah.
As a general surgeon. Surgeons, they're like the badass of the medical industry.
I consider myself a consultant. I give them my best advice. The food that we eat to a very large degree nowadays is devoid of nutrients. I talk about a COVID pandemic. We're in the middle of a diabetes pandemic. In the allopathic world, they see you once a year and they pat you on the ass and they send you out the door and say, eat less, exercise more, we'll see you next year. We look for insulin resistance. We look for visceral fat.
Your blood work that you do on your patients when they take it to the regular doctor, what typically happens?
Yeah,
have that doctor read it because I don't understand it, right? We want to work with people that actually want to help themselves in the right way. Welcome to another episode of a Healthy Point of View podcast. I'm your host, Sam Tejada, and today we have a special guest here, one of our Liquivida doctors from Hyperfit MD in Connecticut. He's in town. They're here not to just visit me, but also participate at the A4M, the American Academy of Anti-Aging Medicine. They have their spring congress here. We have Dr. Charles Guglin, a.k.a. Dr. Chuck. Dr. Chuck, how are you, man?
I'm good, man. I'm a work in progress. That's what I am. Just like everybody else, right?
You're here in paradise.
Yeah.
You flew down to paradise. Well, at least a lot of people call it paradise. Yeah. How's the weather versus Connecticut?
Oh, right now Connecticut's beautiful. Look, I grew up in the northeast, and I love it up there. So it's a little bit hot for me down here, but it is, I love it. Connecticut is just shaping up right now. The world is, we're all taking a bath in pollen right now.
Allergy season.
Yeah, oh man, you have no idea. It's just crazy. But it's the sun's coming out and the flowers are blooming. It's beautiful up there. It's just this time of year when the trees pop and that bright green, that like super bright green that you see
beautiful
in the springtime.
Stuff.
It's amazing.
Yeah. So I was just in New Jersey last week visiting some of the Liquivida locations, and I went to take a look at the weather before flying out there, and it was 85 degrees up there and 80 degrees down here.
Yeah.
And I was ready to go with my coat and everything, and I was just like, oh wow. Yeah. So, but the big thing is like hearing people talk. They were talking about going to like the spring gardens where everything's like blooming and everything else, which is pretty cool.
Yeah. It's this is the perfect. Oh, now this time in fall time are just beautiful. You can take the dogs out and you don't have to worry about putting on 3 layers to go outside, stuff like that. You just go out in your pajamas if you need to, that kind of stuff. So it's really nice. Yeah,
awesome.
Love it.
So, Dr. Chuck, who is Dr. Chuck?
Well, first of all, I'm a really old guy. I've been around the block quite a few years. I graduated medical school in 82 and finished my surgical training in 89. And I was a practicing general surgeon. I did trauma for a couple of years in the Hartford area, and then came down to Southern Connecticut and did general surgery in the Yale, New Haven, in the New Haven area, community hospitals, just pulling people's butts out of the fire for 35 years. Everything from trauma, a lot of oncology.
30
like
years,
that. 35 altogether.
35. Wow, as a general surgeon.
Yep.
So when you say general surgeon, like for the listeners, like what did you do as a general surgeon?
Oh man, my career spanned the era of subspecialization. When I first started doing general surgery in Southern Connecticut, my partner and I did GYN oncology. We did babies. We did vascular. We did oncology. Everything but like brain and heart we did. And then one by one, these things became a subspecialty, right?
Right.
And we did hands, we did everything. And then the last 5-10 years of my career was all, when you're a general surgeon, first of all, you're taking care of the sickest people on the planet, number one.
Right.
And number two, probably 40-50% of what you do comes from the emergency room. So you're awake all night operating a lot, that kind of thing. A lot of laparoscopic surgery, a lot of oncology. The 20 and the 21st century, cancer rates have skyrocketed.
Wow.
And we have a saying in surgery, he's super healthy, he's going to live long enough to get cancer. And it's the truth, man. It's one of those things. It's like if you live long enough, cancer's going to get you now because of all the toxins that we're exposed to and things like that.
Right.
It's just nuts. And a lot of it has to do And one of the things I talk to patients a lot about is the fact that if you go to your personal physician and he says, what meds are you on? First of all, he shouldn't ask you, he should know. But, and you go through a list of supplements, especially if you're in my practice, you're saying, well, I'm taking a multivitamin and I'm taking vitamin D and yada, yada, all this other stuff. And then he'll make some flip comment like, well, all you're doing is giving yourself expensive urine, something like that. It's not true. The food that we eat to a very large degree nowadays is devoid of nutrients.
Of nutrients, yeah.
If you lived in the 19th century, you didn't need supplements because your food was grown in dirt, right? Fungus, bacteria, all those entities that bring the stuff that our bodies run on to the produce that we eat and to the produce that the protein that we eats, that's gone now. It's all grown in nitrogen fertilized soil or hydroponics, things like that. And so you need that stuff and you have to objectively measure it.
Right. So let me ask you this. Obviously 35 years in traditional medicine as a general surgeon. Yeah. What would be the reason why a lot of physicians in that traditional world lack in the ability to understand how important these nutrients are?
Your question embraces a more global thing in the allopathic community.
Right.
Their hands, they live in a box. The title of that box is Standards of Care. Okay. Standards of care is dictated frequently by old science, the insurance industry, the fact that for the most part, students nowadays, to a very large degree, are practicing medicine in an algorithmic fashion where you walk in and you have how you feeling, what's going on. You have a list of symptoms, and immediately in their mind, they're going through a list of pharmaceuticals that they can prescribe for you to help you with your symptoms.
Right.
Yeah. So standards of care is what's killing medicine, frankly. In my practice, everything that I do would be considered in that realm. Not everything, but a lot of what I do in that realm would be considered out of that box.
Right.
A lot of what we do is off-label. We use a lot of off-label, not a lot of pharmaceuticals, but a lot of things we do, it would be considered off-label by the allopathic community.
And I understand that, but one of the things that I always question is like first couple of years of medical school when you're going through like biology and looking at like the metabolic pathways, Krebs cycle, all of that stuff, that really, when you start looking at it, right, and look at all of the nutrients that we give to our patients in the functional medicine space, everything from glutathione to magnesium to SAMe, NAD, it's all there, right. And if you actually study it hard enough and understand it, that's how your body functions.
That's right.
So, like, why ignore it? Yeah. Why ignore it? I mean, I feel like I've seen a lot of medical practitioners, students, that after a couple years of medical school, they totally forget about it.
Oh, yeah. Don't forget the first time you heard the word Krebs cycle was in high school.
Yeah.
High school biology, dude, right?
Right.
So you left it, I mean, not you, but frequently physicians left that behind long before they went to medical school.
Right.
Yeah, it's true. Most of the things that we do, you can find in a standard biology textbook,
right?
If it's relatively modern,
Right.
But the whole concept of allopathic medicine now, if you leave surgery aside, is really about giving medicine, giving pharmaceuticals. We call it. I mean, the whole meaning of the word medicine has changed over time, and the pharmaceutical industry is really taking it over. It's a shame. Because you have doctors, really brilliant people, really super smart people whose hearts are in the right place, but they're just bogged down, mostly, quite frankly, because they work for insurance.
Right,
yeah.
Right. So
they feed their families.
What made you, after retiring from general surgery, what made you want to go into the industry?
Dude, I retired from surgery because I wanted to do this.
Okay.
Yeah. I did my last operation in 15, something like that. I'm referring, by the way, those of you, my wife Francesca's right here.
He's not looking at a ghost, by the way.
Yeah, right, exactly. I burned out a little bit. You reach a certain age and being awake all night starts to wear on you. So that's part of it. Carrying a beeper all the time starts to wear on you. That's a significant part of it. You know, your kids grow up in your absence to a large degree, that kind of thing. But by that time, my kids were launched. And I just want to, you know, I was going to these conferences. I went to AMMG and was going to these conferences. I'm saying, man, this is where it's going, you know? And God intervened, and I met Francesca, who was already kind of in this space because she was working a Cenogenics practice, and she knew the vendors and things like that. And man, the two of us got together. We started this practice without a single chart, and our practice is exploding right now.
I know you guys got the new location, everything.
Oh, yeah.
And I'm excited to go up there next week for the grand opening also. So
yeah, and part of it, I mean, we don't, you know, put it this way. In 21, I think, looking at my taxes, I spent like 65 grand on marketing in 21. In 23, almost nothing, because word of mouth is driving
it just
our practice.
doesn't.
Yeah,
right.
Because people are looking for it now. You have to understand. I was saying that to the guys before you came in. Connecticut, to a large degree, is 15 years behind the times in pretty much everything. You know, what's driving this is South Florida, Southern California, Houston, Chicago, places like that. Not really even New York. Not really even New York.
Wow.
Yeah, there's a couple of Cenogenics places in New York or whatever. There's guys that are making a lot of money doing
the concierge medicine and stuff, right?
Concierge medicine, quick spin PRP, stuff like that. So to a large degree, we are surfing the crest of a wave that started here and started in the West Coast and is just now hitting the Northeast.
And you're like one of the first ones there, right?
Oh, man, we're way ahead of them.
So that's
awesome.
awesome. That's
absolutely
fortunate. They're very fortunate to have that.
It's work, though. I don't have to tell you how much work it is to penetrate the zeitgeist about what medicine is and what it should be. You've been doing it since you started, you know?
Yeah.
You're just sticking your head out there. And people are trying to cut it off all the time. But you know what? You are backed by science, and we are backed by science. And any doctor who tells one of my patients that what I'm doing is wrong, you know, or he's a quack, you know, how many times do patients call me laughing?
All right, so I want to talk about
my
that.
doctor called me a quack.
Talk about that because we're talking to, and the listeners got to understand this. And you know, my mentor, Dr. Robert Willix, which you've met. He was a heart surgeon.
He was something.
And you were a surgeon, right? A general surgeon, which surgeons, you know, they're like the badass of the medical industry. You know, they're the guys who have, and rightfully so, they can have an ego. Yeah. So when you get into this industry of functional medicine and someone that's now kind of challenging your 35 years of medical expertise and calling you a quack, how do you take that?
I laugh. You know, I tell, and Francesca can back me on this, probably 100 times in the last 8 years we've had this practice. I've said to a patient, look, you know, have your doc call me. Have them give me a call, and I'll just explain what it is we're doing and why it is we're doing it. I don't get confrontational with people about any of this stuff. They think what they think, and if I can teach them, we are very much a curriculum-based practice. Okay?
Right.
So have your doc call me. I'm happy to explain why we do it. And you know how many calls I've gotten in 8 years? Zilch point shit, dude. Nothing.
Yeah, they probably they don't want to deal. They don't want to take that risk of you know you teaching them.
They know what they know.
Right.
They know what they know.
Yeah.
And they're not willing to go further to maybe figure it out, you know. And not to mention the fact that, again, everything that we do is cash-based because insurance doesn't pay for anything that we do. Even if that doc decides he's going to embrace this kind of medicine, he can't feed his family doing it.
Right.
In the model that he's currently in which he's currently practicing, you know.
Yeah, I would say now, you know, fast forward to where we're at today, we're starting to see a lot more of these general practitioners move away from traditional medicine and going into a lot of these so-called alternative treatments, right? That now are becoming more mainstream. Yeah. And you're starting to see even a lot of the not the insurance companies, but a lot of studies coming out where now it's actually becoming part of like the initial steps of primary care. You know, which is, I think it's a beautiful thing because it's finally, you're starting to see a little bit of shift, but it's not there yet.
You know, you use the word alternative. For 50,000 years, shamans and witch doctors and priests,
Right.
and grandmothers, okay,
The home
have been
remedies.
treating and making people well solely on anecdotal evidence, okay?
Right.
And anything that is not backed by frequently either NIH or pharmaceutically funded, randomized, peer-reviewed, data-driven science is considered alternative. In a world where you and I exist solely because for those 50,000 years, lines and lines of civilization have survived on anecdotal evidence.
Right.
Okay. So when people use the word alternative, when somebody who's in that box use the word alternative to refer to me, I get a little frosty on that. You know what I mean? And you can use it legit because you're in it. Right?
I'm in it. Right.
Yeah,
Right.
in it.
Right.
So,
And you know, talking about that, and I can't talk too much about this, but I want to throw it out there. So recently, our New Jersey franchisee got put in a position with a new potential deal for Liquivida. And myself and Dr. Davis, we've been on these Zoom calls, and it's actually, we were so surprised by it. It's one of the biggest hospital systems in New York that wants to actually create a wellness center, and they want Liquivida to be it.
good for you.
But they want to support it, and they actually want to run research behind a lot of the stuff that we're doing. So what I'm noticing now is that even a lot of these guys that are in the allopathic medicine that are starting to notice that most of their patients that are coming in and they're good patients are seeking this type of treatment.
Right.
So if they don't get with the times and start getting involved in it, they're going to be left behind.
Yeah.
So now we're actually seeing, I mean, who would have thought an actual hospital system?
Yeah.
You know?
But they have to do it right. I've had a couple of patients who went to that Princeton wellness, whatever it is they call it, and they said, you know, we went through this mill, and we, did the whole thing, their whole offerings, and they said basically it was just sexier allopathic medicine. They weren't
really?
doing anything new.
Wow.
And so, if these people want to do it right, they have to listen to you guys. You
Right,
know, they can't
right.
say, "Look, this is how we do it. Maybe we can introduce what you do as a sideline, and what we do that is not going to work for
Right.
them." Patients not looking for that kind of thing.
No.
They're looking for you, dude. And,
Right.
and unless those guys listen to what you're saying, unless those guys open their ears to what's happening out there, they're going to fail.
Yeah, we'll get them educated.
Yeah, man. Yeah.
They'll love it.
Teach them something, man.
Yeah. So, all right, we got the new facility that you guys just moved into. So opening up. Out of all the services that you offer right now, what's the hottest service that's happening?
The hottest service is kind of mundane, frankly, but it's people 35 to 75 who feel like shit, excuse my language, and are out there seeking some kind of help from their doctors and are getting nowhere. And they know that it's going to take something. And quite frankly, these are people who understand in a fundamental way they need to spend some of their disposable income on their health, okay? Because insurance is not doing it for them.
Right.
If you fall off a ladder, you need your insurance, okay? God forbid your heart vapor locks on you, you need insurance.
Right.
But these people who they feel terrible. They're sick all the time, or what do I hear in my practice every day? I'm tired and I'm fat, right? This
Right.
is America. Our whole concept of body composition is warped by the media. We were not lied to. We had this misconception. Fat and protein were demons in the 70s and 80s, and we all got fat on sugar. I talk about a COVID pandemic. We're in the middle of a diabetes pandemic right now. And in the allopathic world, for the most part, they don't talk about insulin resistance. They don't talk about, what they do. They see you once a year, and they pat you on the ass, and they send you out the door and say, eat less, exercise more, we'll see you next year. We look for insulin resistance. We
Right.
look for visceral fat. My practice is one of the things I follow closely in my practice is visceral adipose tissue. You have to.
And you're using the DEXA scan for that?
Yeah, we use the DEXA scan for that. And now we're using total body MRI for that as well.
So you're saying that food pyramid is probably no good.
It's upside
right?
down. It's upside down.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So and I think that's one of the biggest issues, because same thing out of all the other wellness centers that we have is, people are coming, they feel fatigue, they can't get an answer. The answers they're getting are very generic. Get more sleep, go do this, go do that. And no one's actually diving deep under the hood, right? They're not actually even looking at the patient. I mean, heck, I got patients that come in and say that their doctors don't even touch them.
Right.
So let's talk a bit about some of the testing and diagnostics that you run initially, and I know there's a whole other part also,
right.
Lifestyle questionnaire assessments. Let's talk about how you go through your process at your clinic when a patient comes in and says, I'm feeling tired.
Yeah. They come in and see me. The first consultation in my practice is always free. And I spend probably an hour with them. Francesca does all the work in the practice, except she does everything except the doctor part of it. And she's always knocking on my door. You've been here for an hour and 15 minutes, and this guy's not paying anything, So, but I do that initial consultation is always free. It's anywhere from a half an hour to an hour. We kind of go through everything that ails them, what they perceive to be their issues, family history, all the obvious stuff.
Right.
The onboarding process of the practice, which is inviolable as far as I'm concerned, because a lot of people come in with blood work in their hands that their doctor has done. And you know what that is. It's that executive panel that they do every single year. It's mostly about cholesterol and sugar. And quite frankly, all they're looking at is their hemoglobin A1C and their fasting glucose, and they're not going any deeper than that in terms even when it comes to sugar issues. So we do a boatload of blood work. We do everything. We do vitamin levels. We do autoimmunity, deep into the hormones. I mean, some of these people with an endocrinologist will bring their annual blood work to me, and there's nothing in there. And this guy's running their endocrine system.
Wow.
So deep into the hormones, and then the usual stuff, cholesterol and all those things. And when all that stuff comes back, I sit down with them, and we do what we call the lab review. It's about 2.5 hours I spend with them.
Oh, wow.
Put them on the DEXA scanner, right?
Yeah.
That's part of it. If they want a VO2 max, we do the VO2 max. So, VO2 max is not built into that evaluation, but frequently once people find out what it is, because they had no idea what it is, a lot of these athletes, they want to do that right away.
Right.
And each of these numbers means something. But each of these numbers means something in the context of all the other numbers.
Right.
And each of these numbers means something else in the context of that person that's standing in front of you. Okay? And it is never explained to them. They have no idea what's going on. And frankly, these people will bring this panel to their own doctors. They'll say, what is this? What is he doing,
I was just going to ask you that, actually, because you were saying how they bring their blood work from their doctor, which you could grab it and read it, right? But your blood work that you do on your patients when they take it to the regular doctor, what typically happens? Have that doctor read it, because I don't understand it, right?
Yeah, it's that kind of thing, Right, exactly, homocysteine, what's homocysteine? No, they've never had it drawn in their lifetime, the simple markers for inflammation, the cardiologists hang their hats on CRP, high sensitivity, but fact of the matter is that's an acute phase reactant. That's got a 19-hour half-life.
Right.
That is virtually meaningless in terms of your overall cardiovascular risk. But the cardiology community looks at that as if it means something. I mean, you need to parse this stuff out. And so at the end of that consultation, they have a clear idea. It's a snapshot, right? But they have a clear idea of what I think. And I tell people all the time, there's only one contract people sign in my practice. They need to maintain a relationship with a personal physician, because I consider myself a consultant, okay? Because what does a consultant do? He gives his best advice. Like Francesca says all the time, you can lead a horse to water, right? So I consider myself a consultant. I give them my best advice. This is what I think that you should do, and we can help you with all of it.
Right.
And like in this day and age, we're closing 100% of people come through the door because some of them are desperate, but some are already looking for what it is we do.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
because it's out there now.
It's
in the
out there,
newspaper, yeah.
and you guys are one of the few only that offered in your area too. You guys were one of the first, so it's like,
Yeah, it's online and stuff like that, There's a few testosterone mills in Connecticut, just like there are in Florida. But, you can teach a chimpanzee to give somebody testosterone.
Right,
Yeah. And those dudes that come through the door, all they're trying to do is score testosterone. I send them on their way. We do the whole thing, but, and they say, well, I can get this stuff in the gym. I say, go ahead, do it.
Yeah. And it's so dangerous because they don't know what they're really getting. And, but that's not the type of clientele we're trying to deal with to begin with. You know, it's
Exactly.
we want to work with people that actually want to help themselves in the right way.
Right.
So
I
I
look at
get
a lot
it.
deeper than that, too.
Yeah.
So that is the kind of bulk of what we do. But we do a lot of other stuff. We were talking about this before. We do a lot of services. We do regenerative medicine. We do stem cell stuff. We do stem cell harvesting.
Are you guys doing that for like injuries, or are you doing for age management purposes?
The PRP stuff is everything from, shoulders, hips, and knees to erectile dysfunction, things like that. We're also doing stem cell harvesting, and we're having it cultivated in a lab in Chicago. And now we're actually doing, I shouldn't say this out loud, I don't think, because, but the patients that are in the practice who are interested in having their own autologous stem cells cultivated and then used for their hips, knees, shoulders, or whatever, we provide that service as well. The kind of thing that Tony Robbins went down and paid $60,000 in the Dominican Republic to do, or something like that, okay?
Yeah.
In our own little practice in Connecticut, we do that stuff.
That's awesome.
We do all the aesthetics. I'm a surgeon. Why wouldn't I be doing aesthetics? It's an age management practice. And a lot of people, a lot of the women in the practice and the men are interested in that part of it as well. So we do everything from sculpture to Botox, that kind of thing as well. VO2 max, resting metabolic rate, the DEXA scanning. We see a lot of athletes.
The whole shebang.
Everything. And
this is how
Liquivida Lounge.
And the Liquivida side.
Lounge,
Liquivida
IV
side.
therapy. We see a lot of cancer patients from
For the IV
Smilo.
drips?
Yeah, because, they go to Smilo, which is the cancer center at Yale, and they get chemo, and they send them home, and they feel terrible. And they feel terrible for
So
2 or
what are
3
you
weeks.
doing with these cancer patients? Like, why are they seeking IV drips, and what kind of IV drips are you
A lot
giving
of them
them?
come from naturopaths. We have a big penetration in the naturopathic community.
You guys allow naturopaths in Connecticut?
Yeah.
Oh,
yeah,
really?
yeah,
Wow.
definitely.
There's only 14, 15 states or something like that
Really?
allow them.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Here in Florida, you say naturopath, they try to put you in jail.
Get out, really?
I think the last couple of naturopaths died off a few years ago.
Wow.
Yeah, they don't allow it here.
Well, Bridgeport, up until a couple of years ago, had a naturopathy school. So there's a lot of them in Connecticut.
Oh, wow.
And so a lot of patients seek, especially patients with stage 4 cancer, seek naturopathy help just because they want to feel better. So there's that subset of people that get sent to us by the integrative oncologists as well, who want big doses of vitamin C, let's say, or glutathione, those kinds of things.
When you said big dosages, like what are those dosages at?
We start 25, 50, then get a G6PD on them, and then I'll go up to 100.
Wow. And that gets a lot more aggressive at that point.
Absolutely.
The G6PD, I'm happy you brought that up, especially with high dose vitamin C.
Yeah.
Tell the listeners kind of like what's the purpose of running the G6PD test on the high dose vitamin C?
It's a liver enzyme that genetically many of us do not have, and it takes that liver enzyme to help you metabolize those big doses of vitamin C. It's often in the oncology world, they typically draw that at the beginning before chemotherapy anyway. So a lot of people come with it in hand, but the ones that don't, we do that. Frequently, it's just people who want a full boat, like what you guys call a liquid lift, what we call a liquid lift, which is like a full boat IV, just because they feel terrible because they've been on chemo. And the allopathic method of giving people chemo is to give it to them and just send them home, and they feel terrible for the next 2 or 3 weeks until they get their next dose.
Right.
Sometimes they'll send them down to the emergency room for a liter of saline. I mean, what good is that? I mean, seriously.
Yeah.
Because they don't do it because insurance won't pay for that. And so they'll come to us for that kind of thing. But we also see a lot of hungover dudes on Friday mornings and Saturdays. And flu season, we see a lot of people, a lot of athletes who are going to go for a big mutter and they want to get ready for it, that kind of thing.
And those cancer patients that are undergoing like chemotherapy, radiation, like people have to understand that it's not just killing the bad cells, but it kills a lot of your other cells, and it puts a lot of oxidative stress into the
Right.
body. And when we do that high dose vitamin C, it's that antioxidant of vitamin C. It's helping reduce a lot of that oxidative stress.
Right.
So I bet these patients feel fantastic.
Absolutely.
After
They come
doing it.
back.
Yeah.
A lot of times it's their kids that bring them in.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because the kids probably see like such a better quality of life, because it's one thing to go through the chemo, even if the chemo's being very successful, the treatments, but if the person is just like, in a wheelchair and dragging and very fatigued and tired and feeling horrible, what kind of quality of life is that for your parent?
Exactly.
So,
Exactly.
yeah. So let me ask you this. What is something when it comes to the allopathic medicine that is a bit bothersome to you, that you would want to see change in the next few years and for them to start adapting to it?
Okay. Number one, it's in my head all the time. Women are third-class citizens in medicine in this country because we've completely abdicated their care to the GYN community. God bless the GYN docs. They're great at delivering babies, and they're great at taking their stuff out when it's not working for them. But a postmenopausal woman who seeks care at a GYN doctor's office might as well be looking into an empty well. There's nothing there. The 20-year-old girl who's ravaged by premenstrual syndrome, who spends 3 weeks out of every month miserable because she can't cope, because just metabolically, hormonally and metabolically, she's under the weather all the time. What do they get? Birth control pills.
Right.
There's one treatment for everything in the GYN community. It's BCPs. Okay?
Right. The birth control. And that is, I'll tell you, lately I've been hearing more horror stories of these young girls on all these birth controls, and they're just totally messed up.
I'll tell you a story.
Infertility has been crazy.
Oh yeah.
Definitely. It's bad.
Yeah. One of my good friends brought her daughter to me. This was a couple of years ago. This girl was captain of the hockey team, straight A student, one of the leaders in her high school, a trail of friends behind her all the time. Junior in high school, withdraws, spends all her time in her room, quits the team, gains like 30 pounds, doesn't want to talk to anybody, doesn't want to be anywhere.
Wow.
Everything about her changed. And her mother brings her in. And, we did the blood work and all that, the business like that. And her hormones are just like, now what what Neil Rousier would say, never even bother doing hormones on a pre-menopausal woman because it changes every day, and it does change every day.
Right.
Okay. So there was nothing in the hormonal analysis that gave me a clue about what was happening. And then just by virtue of conversation, when did all this start, blah, blah, blah. And it just turns out that she was having some PMS issues, and she was started on birth control pills. And this all started when she was placed on birth control pills.
Wow.
And literally taking off the birth control pills changed everything. Just one story, right? Just one story. But it's rampant. It's that kind of thing that's going on all the time. And so that's a thing, a real bug that I've got.
So, a lot of these young women, they're looking for answers, right? And a lot of them are going through their teens all the way through their 20s, and then they get off the birth control in their 30s because they're ready to, conceive and have kids. And now they're having all kinds of issues. Forget about the infertility part, just the way they feel. And I have one of the influencers who speaks publicly about this. So I'll talk about it. Jen Selter, she has over 14 million followers, and she's experienced that. And she got off the birth control, I'd say, give or take, probably about a year ago at this point, and she's still trying to get her body to where it needs to be. And there's a lot of questioning. There's a lot of doctors that she's seeing, and she posts about it all the time. And it's something that we have to create the awareness so people understand, like, hey, if you're going to be putting your daughters, or if you're going to be the patient getting on all these birth control, understand what you're potentially going to be dealing with.
Right. I mean, what they're doing is manipulating their entire hypothalamic pituitary axis, their entire endocrine system, with one goal in mind, and that's to keep them from ovulating.
Wow.
Think about that,
Yeah.
If you have sex, put a condom on that dude, and,
Right.
IUDs, okay? You don't have to have a hormone-eluting IUD. The Egyptians were using IUDs thousands of years ago. You take a little pebble and you stick it in a woman's cervix, and she will not through the cervix in the uterus, and they will not conceive. It's simply an irritant. It doesn't take hormones. Okay, not that I'm a huge advocate of IUDs anyway, but and the postmenopausal set. We're talking about young women. The women between 45 and 60 are going through menopause. The whole attitude in the GYN community is that estrogen exists to stop hot flashes. And I'm 68. Every mom in my community had a hysterectomy, because back in those days, what's it there for? It's just going to cause cancer, so let's get rid of it, right? And the GYN community still thinks that the only reason a woman needs progesterone is to protect her uterus, which is ridiculous. Every single cell in a woman's body has progesterone receptors, especially their brain, their heart, their breasts, okay? It is the balancing act that makes a woman, and these guys, they slap an estrogen patch on them for their hot flashes or whatever. A lot of docs don't believe in the concept of estrogen dominance and things like that, and it's not worthy of arguing, quite frankly. But breast tissue especially is very responsive to estradiol, and what progesterone is the balancing act.
Right.
It is the best sleep medication on the planet. Every single postmenopausal woman that comes to me complains of difficulty sleeping, and you replace progesterone, okay? You get their blood levels back to where they were when they were premenopausal, and they're sleeping like a baby again. Okay?
Like a baby.
Just like a baby. And they're kissing my ass for what? Because I read some stuff in a book and just pay attention to it,
Yeah.
And so that's a little bit of an issue with me.
So let me ask you this about women.
Caloric restriction is another one, but we'll talk about that later.
So with women versus men, would you say as a physician, throughout the learning process of how to treat hormones, would women be more complex?
Oh, God, yeah.
Yeah, right.
Jesus. Yeah.
That's probably why a lot of doctors in the functional medicine space will just focus on men.
Oh, yeah. The women in my practice are having blood work done 4 or 5 times a year.
Are you doing like urine hormones too, or?
Blood, straight up blood.
Blood?
Yeah,
Okay.
straight up blood. If I was a student of the whole urine thing, I would do it. But a lot of the guys that I follow who are older than the guys that you follow, quite frankly, the guys who've been around for a long time.
Right.
They pretty much do blood. The whole urine and hair and stuff like that in Connecticut, where naturopathy is a big deal, and in California, same thing, comes from practitioners who aren't allowed to draw blood. Come from practitioners who can't do anything invasive like draw blood.
Yeah.
And, God bless them, they're doing the best they can with what they have.
I've met such a variety of physicians that are, when it comes to women, that they're doing the urine, they're doing the blood, they're doing this. And I don't know what the gold standard is. We do blood too, at Liquivida, but I keep on hearing a lot about the urine stuff also.
Yeah, it's, somebody comes into practice and you spend 5 minutes taking their blood, or you give them a jar and you say, every drop of urine that you create in the next 24 hours, I want in this jar.
Exactly.
How many times are you going to get somebody to take that jar at home, and do it right? Maybe they'll say, okay, but then they're out at McDonald's or something and they go to the bathroom and it undoes everything, that kind of thing,
Yeah.
But yeah, and another thing I have a problem with is the whole concept of caloric restriction as being a path towards successful. We talk about fat loss, obviously, in our practice, just like you do.
Are you using any of the GLP-1 drugs?
Yeah, we are. But
oh boy, here goes the but.
There's a contractual element in my practice. I will not prescribe those for anybody who is not working with a weight trainer.
Oh, really?
Yes, unless
That's
they're
awesome.
eating protein macros consistent with their lean body mass, and they're working regularly with a trainer. I mean, I don't ask them for a ticket from their trainer, but I want them to be honest about it, because what do we know? We have millions and millions of people on these medicines now, and we know that for every 10 pounds they're losing a significant amount of muscle mass. And their resting metabolic rate drops. And look, put it this way, it is no different than any other form of caloric restriction. It's no different than a gastric bypass. It's no different than, men are not great at this, but women are really good at starving themselves, okay? I hate to make gender differences, but it is true. We suck at it. They're really good at it. And so that man or woman who goes on a GLP-1 agonist and let's say their resting metabolic rate is 3,000 calories a day. Somebody like your resting metabolic rate is probably about 3,000 calories a day. And you go on one of these things and, you know, you want to get into your Army uniform for a ceremony or something like that, right? And so you want to drop 20 pounds and you go on these medicines to drop your 20 pounds. Now your resting metabolic rate is 1,600 calories. And you go back and you've successfully lost those 20 pounds. And in those 20 pounds, you lost about 4 or 5 pounds of muscle mass. Not only have you lost the caloric expenditure that would have naturally come from the muscle mass you've lost, but your metabolism has reset.
Right.
And now your resting metabolic rate is 1,600 calories, 1,200 calories. You've done the ceremony. You've been the mother of the bride, okay, or whatever it is that you were losing that weight for. And you go back to eating the way you eat. And you gain all that weight back, but now it's all fat. So you started that journey, let's say, with a 30% body fat, and now it's 36%.
Wow.
And you have a resting metabolic rate of 1,600 calories a day.
So I want all of the viewers and listeners to understand, because this is the importance of having the right medical practitioner treating a patient with the GLP-1 drug. Because there's a lot of these cash cow clinics that are just prescribing it. People can go online, telemedicine, and just get it. And everything that you're talking about, all these calculations and stuff, when you go to a clinic like Hyperfit MD or to one of the Liquivida locations, we're not just prescribing it to them. We're doing blood work, right? We're doing an RMR, resting metabolic rate. We're doing body composition analysis, so we get a baseline. We can see how much lean mass they have versus the adipose fat, the visceral fat. And then we're trending it throughout that weight loss journey.
Right.
Because we don't want them to lose that lean mass.
Right.
You know? So I love the fact that you said exactly what you said and about them making sure they're intaking the right macros and the micros and making sure that they have the trainer. Because if not, you're going to get these people that are losing. I mean, they actually look like sick cancer patients.
Sure.
And now one of the big things is the whole, they call it the Ozempic face, where now it's like, and you know, I saw it on the news the other day where they're talking about, oh, it's because they're losing the fat in their face. Yeah. No, they're not just losing the fat in their face. They're actually losing muscle also.
Yes.
And now they look sick. And there's some of these celebrities where they got these before and after pictures. Well, what are you doing for those patients that are just like...
Scolding them. Wait, Dad,
you gotta wake them
I'm
up.
older than all of them, so
you can.
I get to scold them. Yeah. I mean, I try not to let that happen. And I never heard, to be honest, I've never heard the Ozempic face before.
Yeah, it's all over the place.
Sense. Yeah,
you Google it whenever you get a chance, and you'll see it. It's like I've actually, the media has reached out for me to comment on it, and now it's like becoming more of a thing. And today on social media, I actually saw some of the things about it. Yeah,
I'll definitely look it up when we're done here. Yeah.
So, which is kind of good for our aesthetic side, right? Maybe get some fillers in there.
You're right, exactly. Somebody loses 30 pounds on Ozempic and they come back to me for fillers. Maybe I should do that. Make a lot more money. Yeah.
But you know, ultimately, like having lean mass is part of longevity, right? Yes. And this is one of the things as people start aging, we talk to a lot of the elderly that come into the practice. We talk to them about the importance of doing a lot of functional training and building lean mass. So
absolutely, man.
we don't want to do, let's listen, the GLP-1 drugs can be very beneficial, but it has to be done right.
Right.
So, you know, having a practice like Hyperfit MD that actually does all of these diagnostics and can actually give people the true data, you know, and even tap into your wearables, your Oura Ring and, you know, your Apple Watch to understand how many calories you're burning throughout the day and stuff is important.
Yeah,
cool.
Definitely.
So, Dr. Chuck, where do you see the industry, the health and wellness industry, going in the next 5 to 10 years?
On the allopathic side, it's all going to go boing unless they completely eliminate insurance from the picture and it becomes a national healthcare system, national Medicare for everyone, okay? There's too much money in it. When, you know, something that is made from 35 cents worth of plastic costs $500 for your physician to procure it or your hospital to procure it.
Right.
It's just wrong. And I see more and more people, especially my kids are 37 and 33. They are totally woke to this stuff, man. My kids work out every single day. In fact, they embarrass me sometimes because I'll go visit my son in L.A., And, you know, we'll hang, we'll go to the botanic gardens or something like that, or whatever. And then all of a sudden he'll like disappear for like 45 minutes. I'm like, where'd Zach go? And he was 6 o'clock and he'd gone the entire day without doing any exercise. He went out in the backyard and he worked out.
Wow.
You know?
That's awesome.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
And they're not singular individuals. Their age group is really becoming woke to this stuff to the point where they understand that it's critically important to their health.
They want it. They don't want to be a statistic in the system.
And what you're doing and what we're doing is where medicine should go,
right?
And it's where it is going.
Awesome.
But I gotta be honest with you, man. If insurance start paying for what I do, I'm opening a bar. Simple as that. It's not, because they as soon as they put the handcuffs on things that are considered alternative, okay, or outside the box,
right.
which they do. That's the first thing they do, because to them it's about money. They have shareholders that they are beholden to. They make noise about it being about medicine, and it is to some degree about medicine. It's about making the sort of bottom tier standards of care available to everyone.
Right.
They're not about at all any of the stuff that you do and the stuff that we do. So when they get into this space, I'm out of here. By that time,
it'll be a while.
I'm going to drop dead in my chair. I keep telling Francesca that she's going to come one day to ask me about something, and I'll be dead.
Oh, boy.
I'll be doing it.
No, listen, in the world of longevity now, you might live to 150.
Yeah, well, it's good. I'll do,
We'll create the blue zones, how they say.
Yeah.
All right, so to wrap up here, the functional medicine space, you see a lot of stuff happening. We go to these conferences, they get bigger and bigger. What is something that is a bit frustrating for you?
Part of it is that the whole field of epigenetics and things like that. I want the people who are funding this kind of science. I want more money coming into that kind of science so that we can learn more. This whole concept that your genes are your genes and they're either on or they're off, and we all know that that's bullshit now. We have to understand in a much more fundamental way, on a molecular level, how our body works.
Right.
Okay? And I think that in this practice, we're kind of doing it. Also, and again, this is a little bit mundane, but in our world, it makes a difference. The woman who comes into me, I have a box of Kleenex on my desk, dude, for a reason. I go through a box of Kleenex a week.
Wow.
The woman who comes into me who is having hot flashes and night sweats, complete mood change. In the last 3 years, she's turned into an apple despite her efforts. She's working out, doing some kind of exercise 5 days a week. She's starving herself, doing it the wrong way. That's one of the things people learn in our practice. She's starving herself, thinks that she's going to, and frustrated about not being able to lose weight. She loves her husband, but just can't get it up for him because she has no libido. And when they do have sex, she's having pain, dryness, pain, that kind of thing. The works, right? And I'll say, okay, we can help you. There is science that can help you, and this practice is built on that science. This is what it's going to cost you. Insurance doesn't pay for it. I'm sorry about that. But this is a medical practice, but it's also a business. This is what it's going to cost you.
Right.
And she's like, I got to go home and I got to talk to my husband. And right then and there, I'm seeing, man, bam. So I got to talk to my husband. And Francesca can tell you this happens all the time. She'll call back 2 hours later and she'll say, I can't do it. And I've never done this, but what I want to do is I want to say, put your husband on the phone. He's obviously put a price point on your health. Right? Don't
let Dr. Chuck talk to the husband.
That's right. And he's obviously put a price point on your health. You leave the room. I want to talk to your husband so we can come up with exactly how much he thinks your health is worth.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah.
And that same dude, I'll guarantee you, one Wednesday a month is spending that money at a cigar bar with his friends or something like that.
Right.
Okay. Or he's out on his boat drinking 6-packs, or these guys who play golf, right? You belong to a club, or you play in a municipal course and you're playing 3 times a week and you're dropping $500 a month on golf. Okay.
Right.
In our practice, we are not a rich practice. Our practice is priced because we want our neighbors to be our patients. We live 3 minutes from our office.
I love that.
And we want our patients to be our neighbors. So we're never going to get rich doing this stuff. It's not ridiculously priced. Okay.
Here to help
I don't
people.
charge for time.
Right.
I don't charge for phone calls. I don't charge for anything. I charge for my time, okay? And it's a ridiculously minimal charge, especially when you think about the fact that everything that we do, from the bioidentical hormones and things like that, are all bundled into that subscription. Nobody pays anything extra in my practice except for that monthly subscription. It's ridiculously low price for what we do. That I find extremely frustrating. People that think, because we've learned that we think that healthcare is free, dude, right?
Right.
Because if we're a civil servant, it comes off the top of our salary, so we don't even see it.
Right.
Okay. If we work for a big corporation, it comes off the top of our salary, so we don't even see it. So it feels like it's free, okay?
Right.
But it ain't free, not by any
That's
stretch of the imagination. And when you see what we do for the price that we do it, it's cheap as hell, okay?
Yeah.
And I find that very frustrating because, and I, as I said before earlier in the game, I think that people are beginning to understand they need to spend some part of their disposable income on their health. But they're not there yet. Not in Connecticut. Not in Connecticut.
We'll get there. We're going to make it happen. We'll definitely make it happen.
We're working on it.
Yeah.
We're working
so,
on it.
Dr. Chuck, now that we're wrapping up, give us a few fun facts about yourself personally. Like, what do you like to do on your days off from the clinic?
Francesca and I spend 24 hours a day together. I play music.
What do you play?
We have dogs. I play everything, man.
That's awesome.
I'm still taking piano lessons at the age of 68.
Awesome.
I played rock and roll when I was in college. I had a full scholarship to college, but I paid my room and board because this is back in the 70s, right? All you needed was,
That's when there was good music.
Right, exactly. There was good music. Coffee house era. All you needed was 3 sets of James Taylor, Paul Simon, Cat Stevens, blah blah blah, and you could make $100 in a weekend, and that was basically covered my everything except my tuition. I love my kids. I spend as much time as I can with my boys and their family. They haven't brought me any babies yet. Francesca's son just had a baby about 4 months ago, so we finally have a grandchild.
Congrats.
I haven't taken her on a vacation in 8 years, except for these conferences that we go to. So
hey, make a little vacation out of it.
You're right. Yeah, we do. Yeah. We do weekends here and there. We're Harley people, have been Harley people. We ride our motorcycle a lot, but that's getting dangerous.
Yeah, with the crazy drivers.
Well, crazy drivers, people on their phones all the time. The ambient speed on the highways in Connecticut pre-COVID was like 70, which is easy to do on a big Harley. But now it's 85. And the cops aren't stopping anybody. So we're selling the Harley and we're buying a boat.
Oh, there you go.
We live by the shore, so why not get a boat? Yeah.
Awesome.
But I got to be honest with you, the vast majority of our time is spent in the practice.
Yeah, and you enjoy what you do.
Yeah,
so
of course I do.
That's awesome.
Yeah,
that's how, like me, I work around the clock, but I truly enjoy what I do.
You couldn't do it if you didn't.
Right.
And part of what I love about it is learning something every day. We were talking about that before this all started. Like I said, all those years I was a surgeon, I read my literature and things like that, but that was mostly about killing rats for things. I was never into that. I was always into treating patients. And now the stuff that I read is very patient oriented and oriented to really science on a molecular level. The stuff that you guys are doing is remarkable.
Right.
That stuff I learn. I love learning that stuff.
That's awesome. So, Dr. Chuck, where can people find you?
In Milford, Connecticut. Our website is hyperfitmd.com. Easy to find. And our phone number is 203-890-9777. Francesca is the voice of the practice. She's got a sweet accent. I can never replace her. She'll always be answering the phones because when we answer the phone, that when you call your doctor's office, when somebody's speaking to you on the phone, you can tell if they're smiling, right?
Right.
You're right.
Yeah.
You call a doctor's office and they pick up the phone and they say, hello. Right? Hello. Do you need you can tell, and they consider themselves to be a wall between you and a doctor. Francesca is a conduit between patients and me. That's her job, and she understands.
Yeah, that's crazy. When I worked at the fire department, one of the dispatchers that everyone was just like, ugh.
Yeah.
And she had like that COPD voice. And it was just rough. It was just like, and she worked a night shift. So it's just like you would wake up in the middle of the night just to go on an emergency call, which was just like, God forbid the person who's calling 911 at the like worst time of their life. This is who they're getting,
Right.
you know? So I agree. You got to
You can
have
smell
someone.
the cigarette smoke through the phone.
You gotta have the Francesca instead. You know,
Absolutely.
the person who's nice, bubbly, who has a nice accent too.
Yeah.
So I love it. Dr. Chuck, it was a pleasure to have you on
Thank
the
you for having me,
podcast.
man. This was fun.
Yep.
Yeah,
So
thank
for
you.
those of you guys who are in Connecticut, go check them out. Hyperfit MD. They have a Liquivida lounge inside of it. Go check them out. And even if you're not in Connecticut, make the trip over there. If you want to get treated by a good doctor, make it happen. They're not expensive. They care about your health. This is what it's all about. So go ahead and subscribe if you haven't. Leave comments. Go ahead and like, share, do all the fun stuff. And thank you for watching A Healthy Point of View podcast. And we'll see you for the next one.